Mr Grigol Gegelia, politician and a member of Lelo party, welcome to Georgia Today interview.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Will Lelo party join Zurabigirchija Paridze in his protest, or you prefer negotiations with the ruling party?
First of all, I must say that for Lelo, the priority has been and is to actually see the 12 reform points implemented, to see the country regain its candidate status. That is what actually moves all our priorities, all our decisions, and indeed all our actions. So in the coming season too, our priorities will of course be to pursue all possible routes with the view of actually regaining what Georgia deserves, what the Georgian public deserves, and what we've lost because of the Georgian Dream's malignant policies. But of course, all other methods within the law are perfectly legitimate and will always be in very close discussions with all our partners about what to do, how to do, and when to do.
Is your position a result of unsuccessful attempts to change the government with protest?
No, not at all. I think our position is fundamentally guided by the priority of regaining the status of European membership candidate for Georgia. We will change this government, of course. That takes time. It of course takes time to change an autocratic regime with unlimited funds, with illegitimate means of fighting with political opponents, with the campaign of hatred, fear, and scaremongering, with the attacks on the European Parliament, and I must say, with the attacks also on the idea of what is real. The Georgian Dream has actually attacked the idea of the real and pursued a campaign of falsehood to the degree that everything and anything has been questioned by the GD. The goodness of the West has been questioned. The idea of the European Union as a peace project has been not only questioned, but attacked straight away. And so it is difficult to fight with an autocracy, and we must face that. We are in a very difficult battle.
Political analyst Mr Georgian Dream told us in the interview that real changes are less likely to happen before 2024. Do you see any other option or agree with them?
There is a diversity of views on that. Many people, of course, expect the elections to take place in 2024. There are some other people who see that coming earlier than that. I generally don't think that is the most important question of the day. I think we should be ready to fight each and every day, all the way up until whenever it is, be it 2024 or 2023. Certainly my party is preparing each and every day, and we're ready to take on the GD with our colleagues whenever the elections come up.
Do you expect that before 2024 we will get the EU candidacy status?
I generally can't see that happening with this government, which attacks the European Union daily, which has done its very best to isolate Georgia entirely from the civilized community, the global community. And I certainly can't see that happening because this government will not reform anything. Reforms for this government, we've got to understand, are suicidal. They cannot possibly think of de-oligarchization because they only are united around an oligarch, Bidzina Ivanishvili. They will not reform the justice system. They will not reform any of the critical directions, because the moment they reform things, they will formalize their defeat, which has already happened a few times. But the Georgian Dream has found additional corridors to actually grab power, which doesn't belong to it. So the moment you get reforms in this country, the Georgian Dream ends. And for that reason, they will not reform Georgia at all.
EU once again asked you to work with a party who the EU itself blamed for breaking promises and failing reforms. Isn't this request of the EU dishonoring for you?
It's not dishonoring at all. We understand the position of our Western partners. Of course, they are seeking institutional stability and inclusion, but we don't think that that sort of request necessarily applies to the commissions, the working groups created by the Georgian Dream. There are other forms of inclusion. There are other ways and means of working together among political groups. Certainly the committees of the Parliament of Georgia, as well as the plenary session of the Parliament of Georgia, are the appropriate and very legitimate institutional means of working together, and that is where we're going to be participating. We don't think that anybody has really asked us to work with some sort of very dubious working groups with very low levels of inclusion, with very strange preconditions set by those working groups. For example, one of them being that apparently Ivanishvili is not an oligarch, that the clan is not a problem in the judicial system. I mean, we hear the sorts of preconditions posed by the Georgian Dream that make it impossible for us to participate. We are working on our positive agenda in each of the critical directions, in each of the 12 directions set out by the European Commission, and in September, in a few weeks' time, we'll be introducing our agenda of reform in the Parliament. And I'm very sure that the Georgian people, as well as our Western partners, will be able to see who is offering what sort of quality, what political substance, and indeed what is best for our country.
You criticized the party for its policy towards Russian visitors. What would Lelo party do if you were in the government?
Well, we'd first introduce a visa regime for the citizens of Russia and Belarus. We would actually also introduce mechanisms of control, not only as to who enters the country from these two states and how many people enter Georgia, but also on the ownership of private property as well as businesses, because for Georgia, as a small nation, but also as a small nation threatened by Russia continuously, this is a matter of national security and no less. Currently, we have a very big anomaly at hand. Georgia is actually the only country in the world to have a visa-free regime for the citizens of Russia for 360 days per year. We are the only state in the world. And we are also the state who fought a war with Russia in 2008. We're also the state who has the experience of 90s, who has the experience of creeping occupation, who has the experience of continuous occupation of the sovereign territories of Georgia. I think it's a moral question and a political question and a very serious national security question. I must say that I'm very much against any form of discrimination against any ethnicity, any social group, or any national group. That's not acceptable for us. But at the same time, we want to see the moral, historical, and political dimension of the question and actually install a visa regime, which will, of course, still enable Russians to enter Georgia, to pursue their interests here, be it tourists or whatever it might be. But that's got to be controlled by the Georgian state. And we, as a people and as a nation, have to be able to know who's actually entered the country and for how long and to what purpose.
You call Mr. Ivanishvili an oligarch, but you've never managed to make our Western partners believe in that. The fact is that they've never sanctioned him. If your accusations are accurate and correct, how come you fail to prove it to our partners?
Have we not? That's what I would ask, because I think we have up to a degree. I mean, if you look at the media coverage internationally, Ivanishvili is always named as an oligarch. If we look at the resolution of the European Parliament, he's very clearly depicted as an oligarch. He has not been sanctioned in the full sense yet, although we might see some recent events as a precursor to that. I think everybody knows that Ivanishvili is an oligarch, and he's described as one, and he's spoken of as one. So I think now what is sort of missing is the
Sanctions.
final bit of classic.
But where are sanctions?
I think I'm not the right person to ask that. I think sanctions will come, but I think sanctions will come from different institutions other than Georgian opposition.
Is this the end for Ivanishvili's political life?
Oh yes, certainly. The beginning of the end is on, because the Georgian people will not forgive anyone the loss of European perspective. The Georgian Dream will radicalize further, will try to be even more intimidating, even more radical, even more autocratic, and that is the best sign, I'd say, of their sure end, which is coming.
Mr. Grigol Gegelia, thank you for these interesting answers.
Thank you very much. Glad to have been here.